Film Club.
Thank you very much for joining us for another episode of Film Club. I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. With me, as always, it's Annie Dalton.
Good morning.
Every single week in Film Club, we invite you to watch a film with us, and this week we're here to look at Dog Day Afternoon.
Go on back there, man! Get over there, will ya? He wants to kill me so bad he can taste it.
I can always gonna kill anybody.
Attica! Attica!
Will you-
Attica! Attica!
Directed by Sidney Lumet. Dog Day Afternoon is a film about a bank robbery gone wrong. And it's about them kind of coping with the situation, getting surrounded by police, and negotiations are gone. A little bit of prejudice shot in there.
Yeah.
Quite interesting. Did not know it was Sidney Lumet. Now, obviously, I texted you whilst watching it today going, oh my God, this is the same guy who did 12 Angry Men. So I was immediately prepared for a great experience. Just out there, straight away, didn't enjoy it as much as 12 Angry Men, I must admit.
12 Angry Men was a film we did probably about maybe a year ago or so now on the channel.
6 months, I'd say.
6 months, wow. That is a really special film. Now, Dog Day Afternoon was made significantly after it, and this is Sidney Lumet partnering with Al Pacino. And
It's quite interesting. It's Al Pacino and John Cazale. So those two were
Michael Corleone
and Fredo, yeah.
Fredo.
Which is interesting because they play Sal, who is John Cazale, and then Al Pacino plays Sonny, who is their fictional brother's namesake in The Godfather.
This is coming just a couple of years after The Godfather. You've got Al Pacino post Godfather, also post Serpico, but pre Scarface. So he's kind of like height of his power. This is really Al Pacino hitting his stride, and
He looks so young.
He does look very young. He does look very, very young. The whole plot as well is based around a kind of a real life story. It's kind of meant to be a bit of a true crime drama.
Yeah,
It's
Sonny
based on-
Wartzik.
There's lots of deviations from what actually happened. And
Yes, it's like an adaptation of something using drama to heighten particular elements of it.
yeah, and for me, that's always, I think when you're going to do something like this, which is very clearly dramatized, I think that's the best way to do it. I'm not that interested in something being historically accurate so much as it having an appropriate, pacing and story structure and character development.
So it actually won an Academy Award for the original screenplay, Frank Pearson.
I
Nominated for a
didn't
few
really
more as
know
well.
a great deal of what to expect from Dog Day Afternoon when I sat down to watch it. And genuinely, within the first, 2 minutes, this film had me. Because it opens with this incredible sort of
Yeah.
natural observation of New York. And all we're getting is this sort of these voyeuristic shots of people from around the city. We're traveling through the city. We're seeing the different social classes. We're seeing some of the people sort of higher up, relaxing in very sort of expensive accommodation. And then you're seeing people who are working men, and you're seeing people who are living in the grimier parts of the city. It starts to paint I guess the tensions of the time.
And it's also, you use the everyday people, you use that, more or less that phrase. This is a robbery involving everyday people in and out. And there's a really cool scene to highlight that. It's, the people, the bank tellers themselves are the one receiving the actual robbery, and the robbers themselves, one a former bank teller. You have the bank manager, and they're all just essentially working people. And then you have the radio show person or the TV show that goes to call him. He's like, why are you doing this? What about your wife and kids? He was like, well, do you know how much a bank teller makes? How much do you make? And then that's that political divide there, or economical, divide. And it's quite interesting to see actually, no, you can't just go at me and make me the bad guy. Who are you to say that stood any amount of money? Quite interesting, that bit. And I really enjoyed that.
It's set in a fundamentally anti-establishment era.
Huge. And what better scene with the Attica?
Well, yeah, exactly. So the whole Attica scene. So
That was amazing.
We talked about this before about things not necessarily being realistic at all times. I think the crowd in this film is thoroughly unrealistic. But what they do is they represent a feeling of a larger populace at that time. And that's kind of what the film is trying to do. It's trying to convey how people, what the zeitgeist was in this era, rather than being a realistic representation of a crowd reacting to a armed gunman who's holding a bank hostage.
And what better moment than that, which is quite, well, at the time it was obviously what it was, but it's quite frustrating watching that now, is as soon as they find out that he has a male lover, the prejudice immediately comes in, and they go from cheering to booing him, jeering him. You can see it in the scenes later on, and it's Fredo's character, Sal. He's oh, can you make sure that they know that I'm not homosexual and all this? and it's immediately, you got the economic divide, then you got like the kind of like social political what's the word, prejudice going on as well, and it feels very realistic.
It's all realistic because these characters are three-dimensional. So like in that moment, for example, when Sal asks him to go and correct the news, you can see that Al Pacino doesn't really want to do it because he's like, it shouldn't matter. To him, it shouldn't matter at all whether or not somebody's being called gay or straight or whatever. And normally, in sort of like more Hollywoodized film, that would be a learning moment for Sal. He'd learn that actually it doesn't matter that the news is calling him gay, and he might even joke or embrace it. But instead, he pushes it again. Instead, what they actually kind of use that to manipulate him a little bit and have him drop his guard.
I do love that, but I really enjoy the performances by those two especially. And there's another one as well I just want to give a small shout out to. I thought she was fantastic. The lead bank teller.
Yeah.
Which is Sylvia, Penelope Allen. I thought she was fantastic. I absolutely loved her performance. I love how, I don't know whether it's just like them getting by because they're scared, them getting by out of boredom, or just like whether it's like early days of Stockholm syndrome. But when he's showing her how to do the thing, like the salute with the gun, and she's just trying to having a bit of a laugh. And it's quite cool how they look after each other where she's on TV. And again, there's a normalization of everything where, I was on TV. It was quite cool being in front of everyone, got interviewed and all this. It's just like a day-to-day woman who's like got her little bit of fame in life, which is really cool. Anyway, going back to what I was saying. I really like the characters, you said, very three-dimensional. However, I really, really, really wish Sal got more screen time. That was one of my issues with this film. It was like, it was all, and to be fair, I can see why. So a lot of it was on Sonny and also Moretti, the initial detective who has conversation with class there. I love their dynamic between each other. But I just feel that Sal was just kind of like left in the background. I know he kind of self-imploded. I just wish he had more. I wish they'd wrote him more. And I was a bit gutted about that.
He's definitely sort of put in the background a little bit. He's used a little bit more like a plot device. It's almost like when he's kind of the safety, yeah? He's the one who, while Al Pacino's out on the street making these deals, he's not being shot because Sal's the one holding the gun to everybody's head back inside. But he's also the one who's clearly a little bit mentally unhinged. He's the one who Sal is trying to keep in check alongside everything else.
Yep.
One thing actually we've kind of skipped over a little bit, but to its credit, and shares some similarities with 12 Angry Men, although this isn't necessarily set in strictly one location.
Yeah, it's just two more or less, isn't it? It's class.
Huge amounts of this film are taking place just inside the bank and outside the bank. It's very small in its scope in that way, but also as the film sort of develops and the crowd turns up and the police turn up and they go to the airport later on, the scope of it does start to expand and grow. And I think what that limited, at least that initial limited scope allows them, is it does exactly what 12 Angry Men did. It forces the filmmaker to look at the characters, because if there's one thing that Sidney Lumet is good at, it's that he can really get into the working process of an actor. Like he is he's always been known as an actor's director. Actors typically loved working with him because he was always putting the performance first. He had script and he had structure and he knew what he wanted, but he was rigorous with the way in which he would like approach things like rehearsals, so that an actor could understand like where a full arc was going to go, and they understood the wiggle room they had to improvise within that.
Which is interesting because I would say, well, it's not interesting. It makes sense because the best thing about this film for me is the performances, is like the like three-dimensional characters and everything like that. The thing I slightly struggled with was the pacing. I felt like it ran a bit too long. There was parts where it kind of does a little lull, and I think whether that was intentional with the mood, it's inside and the aircon's not on and it's dark and it's kind of moody atmosphere, maybe like the kind of like long drawn out scenes, or like the way that time, to be fair, time's passed over quite short. It was a long amount of time that it went over, which, to be fair, they were in that building until night, so it's got a good few hours.
Are you saying personally it felt like a dog day?
Well, yeah, I mean, it did. And I hope it was intentional, but even if it was intentional, it was one of the things that I struggled with watching this, to be fair.
We brought this up when we were talking about 12 Angry Men. I don't mean to keep drawing comparisons, but that sort of heat and the sweat and the atmosphere. And
like the rain outside. Yeah, that's a great call.
The ability to feel that sort of that stress that's added through the temperature. He's does that exact same thing here again. He's so good at doing those sorts of things. Yeah,
that's a fantastic point. Good call. I like that.
One last little weird thing that I thought was kind of cool. No non-diegetic music. Obviously, the film opens with Amarina,
Yep. Good call.
which technically, I'm going to argue, starts as non-diegetic, but then they give it a diegesis within the film afterwards. And then from there on, we don't get it. We get, I think, another track or so that's used diegetically. But other than that, completely devoid of it.
Yep, it's all just the atmosphere, everything like that. I love it. Big fan.
It's awesome.
As much as I love the music, big fan.
Absolutely love this. I was blown away by it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. But there is Dog Day Afternoon. You can let us know in the comments below what you thought of Dog Day Afternoon, or you can hit Andy and I up on Twitter. But we are going to be back once again next week where we take a look at just one more, because we're going to have a look at Serpico.
Yes, I'm looking forward to this. I tried it before. I wasn't in the right frame, so here I am fucking going for it again. I can't wait.
Yep. Well, until then, get watching.